Good morning, everyone. Actually, it's high noon in the desert. This is The Truth Denied. I'm your host, Roxy Lopez, and we're having an interesting day already. Our guest today that was scheduled is Deborah Whitman. I actually just left her a message about 10 minutes ago. She is the president for Environmental Voices, and this woman is very busy. She's their mission statement, for starters, is to help preserve our future by providing education and research about toxic chemicals and how they affect our health and the environment. Our little dilemma that we're having here is that we have tried her at a couple of phone numbers and cannot seem to reach her. We're getting voicemails. Although, like I said, I did have a voicemail from her about 10 minutes ago, and
we are going to try again.
I'm going to try again, thanks. We're trying to just hold on, people. We're going to do whatever we can to get her on the line here. There might be some confusion. She's got quite a few phone numbers. We'll just have a little patience here, and if not, we're just going to roll forward regardless.
She just left us a message on another line, so we're going to try that line.
Oh, right. Great. So anyway, while we are waiting for Deborah, I want to thank everyone from the group Chemtrails Kill on Facebook for putting your questions forward. Really intelligent questions that you have, not the typical who's doing it, the spraying, the chemtrail spraying. We've got some really great questions, and we're going to, as soon as we get Deborah on the line, we're going to fill you in with what she's doing as well, and perhaps answer some of the questions that you have provided for us. And she also has those questions. So hopefully we can get into that conversation and discussion. We also welcome you to call the show today if you want to. We do the show as well on YouTube, as you well know, the audio and the video. So,
hi, this is Deborah Whitman. Please leave your name.
We are not having any luck. And did you say that she left us a message with that phone number that we're calling her at?
Yeah, let me see if there was.
Is it a different phone number that we're looking at?
Roxy, that was the number 916 number.
Yeah.
That left that message.
Okay. I am also sending her a note. We will solve this mystery. Something straight, every now and then. I remember when we did the show with Gilliland out at Gilliland's Ranch, and I remember the same thing happened. We had several numbers that we were calling him at. His phone was ringing, but it wasn't ringing on his end, and it was just absolutely bizarre. Now, just for the listening audience, I'm trying to send her an email right now, and the email that the email that I've always sent her emails at is not going through. So, what does this tell you? Very interesting. Well, we're just going to have to move forward.
She just called back again from that number.
She did. And she's calling back. Can we answer her when she calls?
No, when we're on a live show, it automatically sends it to voicemail.
Is that right? And she's calling back from that number.
So we're calling her right back.
There we go. Hey, we're going to get you, Deborah. We're not letting her off the hook, right? Let's see. We'll all wait and see if she actually answers the line.
Hi, this is Deborah Whitman.
Oh, my goodness.
Telephone number and a brief message.
Nope, leave a message.
Thank
All right.
Record your message after the tone. To send a generic page,
Everyone, let's leave her a message.
when you are finished recording, hang up. Or for delivery options, press pound.
Sound tag.
Hi, Deborah. This is Roxy Lopez calling you from The Truth Denied. You have a lot of listeners waiting for you to get on the air. We have called you at both numbers. You're calling in the show on a number. We're calling you back on that number. We also have the other area code 530 that we've been calling you on. I think you might have given us the wrong phone number. So when you call in the show, we cannot pick up the guest line. It goes directly to voicemail. So please give us a call back and maybe leave a voicemail with what number, or send us an email. We just tried to send you a couple of emails. We will get you on the line. We still have a lot of time. It's only 7 minutes into the show.
Let's do a guest call-in number 347-327-9997, and we can see her call into the studio on that line, 347-327-9997.
Absolutely. Let's have you call that. Thank you. Thank you for that, Bernard. Oh, this is too much fun.
In the meantime, we did post on GIC, Roxy, that article that Michael Murphy posted yesterday on his visit to Orlando. Did you happen to see that?
Yes. We're also have that on the website. But go ahead. I mean, it's quite interesting. I've been dealing with Michael in the last week. And, of course, if we remember the last show that we did with Michael Murphy, he was going to go to Orlando, and he was raising some funds to get there. And quite intriguing, his next steps. We'll try to get him back in a couple of weeks to go over the latest or the newest information. But if you want to talk about any of that, Bernard, feel free.
I just wanted to bring up that we've been extremely busy at GIC, of course, with the Occupy stuff, but every time we post something about chemtrails, a lot of people are asking us at the GIC that they believe that it was, one of the posts that we saw today was that what's with all the secrecy and conspiracy of chemtrails? Isn't it just to create rain and, what's the big deal? And I think they were being genuine. It's not like a troll or anything. They were genuinely asking us. I thought this was about rain. Why is the government hiding this information?
Right, and that's correct, Bernard. There is a difference now. In the early days when I was, in the beginning stages of trying to decipher what chemtrails were, I did come across a lot of weather modification documents, and so that incorporated exactly what you're talking about, which is basically making it rain. Now, that function of quote-unquote making it rain, that's very old stuff. We've tracked that back 40 years, and what it was initially set up for was for farmers so that it would rain more often. And so it was basically the technology was cloud seeding. And cloud seeding incorporated, throwing a little soup mix into the clouds and it would rain. But as we looked into it further, these are separate issues. The cloud seeding seemed at first, in my opinion anyway, to be something that was really good, functioning for drought areas, etc., and to increase rainfall, which in turn increases crop generation. But today, when we put those two entities back to back, we realize they are completely separate, and the agenda of the purposeful cloud seeding for rain doesn't seem to cross over to this barium, aluminum, strontium business, which is an entirely different level, if you will, of cloud seeding. And it is still considered cloud seeding, but it is more of a controlling of the weather type thing. Now, I'm not prepared to go into grave detail about this, but I will say this. In my newest studies, and I might as well mention this, Bernard Alvarez is going to be interviewing me on November 7th, so you guys might want to jot that down.
Yeah.
That's Monday, November 7th. And we will get into detail about my studies, which are proving to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that the mother lode of all of this is the aerospace programs and the space industry. Because we are not only dealing with clouds and funky cloud formations, that we notice the difference between what is a normal cloud and what is a cloud that is being sprayed, an aerosol cloud, if you will, which we term as chemtrails or geoengineering trails. There's a huge difference. And then above that, in the upper atmosphere and ionosphere and even outside of planet Earth, there are programs that are absolutely mind-blowing, and we will get into that in Dr. Bernard Alvarez's show regarding the millions of pounds of metals that are being put outside of the Earth's atmosphere, and this is all changing the plasma field. It is changing the way this planet Earth operates. It's changing everything.
Roxy, I think we have Miss Whitman on the line. Let me check.
Okay, terrific.
Hello, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened, but I'm here.
Deborah, we're going around and around and around trying to call you. It doesn't matter. You're here. We always believed you would be. Listener.
Well, I had my cell phone on mute so that it wouldn't interrupt when I was on, the landline, and so I wasn't getting your calls because I didn't hear them.
My goodness.
And I thought you were a landline, so I don't know where the mix-up was, but I'm here now, and I'm anxious to talk to everybody. I'm so glad that you're having me on the show today.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. I'm glad that you could make it. I knew that we'd all figure this out at some point. Now, Deborah, as I mentioned to the listeners, we were just getting on a little tired. Actually, we really needed to talk about what we were talking about anyway, so it's actually perfect. And that's how the universe works perfectly. So Deborah Whitman is our guest, and as you all know, she's with Environmental Voices. And really what I'd like you to talk about, or just give us a hint at least, you are working on a documentary, or putting together a documentary regarding the dying trees. Can you give us some background, how long you've been focused on that, the dying trees, what's causing it, and what you plan on exposing in this documentary? Can you talk to us about that?
Sure, I would love to. Basically what happened, I'll give you a little bit of background about myself, too. I was working for the state of California. I had been there for 26 years. I had a high-paying job as a small business advocate and a contract administrator, and I had been sick for many years. And in 2004, I was videotaping, because I do photography, freelance as a photographer and videographer as well. And I was videotaping a jet spreading something in the skies, and I have that on camera saying, I don't know what these planes are spreading, but I think it's what's making me sick. 2006, a friend of mine had called me and said, you need to go on the internet and research chemtrails. And I said, what, you mean a contrail? And she said, no, it's a chemtrail. It's too big. I can't explain it. Just go research it. And sure enough, the first website I pulled up, I knew what I suspected in 2004, was true. And I was having reactions to the aerosol spraying and going into emergency quite regularly. I was very sick from the chemicals. So I don't need any studies to be done out there to tell me whether there's chemicals or not coming from those planes, because within 4 hours when they start spraying, I start getting symptoms, and they're consistent and have been for years. So
and Deborah,
I decided to...
Deborah, not to interrupt you, but just briefly, can you describe what those symptoms are that you were having?
Oh, yeah. First it would start with my eyes itching and burning, and then it goes into my respiratory. My sinuses would be plugged up and swollen. Then it would get into my lungs, and I'd start having, difficulty breathing, pressure in the chest. Then it gets into my stomach, and I start having, like I want to vomit, not feeling good. Then what happens is I start getting dizzy spells and weakness. And that's when I go into emergency, and it affects my blood pressure, and I have to go in and be put on oxygen. It's the only thing that seems to relieve my symptoms from this. And then after I'm in emergency for about 4 or 5 hours on oxygen, I'm fine, and I go out again until it's like it kind of builds up into my body. And that zeolite product that I took has helped tremendously. I can go out. Before, I couldn't even get out of bed. If they had been spraying, in the morning, I was just so allergic to those chemicals. But now I can tolerate them pretty well. So, but anyway, that's kind of how that all came about. And what happened was I wanted to produce a documentary on the subject. I couldn't get Sierra Club to look into the issue at all. I tried twice to speak at the group here in Yolo, Sierra Club, and they wouldn't let me finish my presentation. So that's why I decided to start Environmental Voices, and I thought nobody's going to tell me what I can talk about and not talk about. And then I did Skylines, which is on, if you go to YouTube and then type in Environmental Voices, all one word, you'll see Skylines on there. It's 2 words, and that I produced. There's 40 minutes of an hour-and-a-half documentary there. And then also Mike Murphy's, which is my favorite, is What in the World Are They Spraying on there as well. So those are really 2 good documentaries that you need to see. And when I started to do the interview with Rosalind Peterson of California Skywatch for that film, Skylines, she came to Davis. And I wanted to film outdoors, so we went to the UC Davis Redwood Grove. I thought, oh, what a beautiful setting. And as I'm setting up the camera equipment, she says, all these trees in here are dying. And I looked at her because I'm a published nature photographer, okay? And I looked around, and it looked mighty beautiful to me. And I looked at her again. I said, well, why do you think they're dying? And she says, well, what color is the bark on redwood trees? And I said, well, red. And she said, yes. I said, okay. She says, well, turn around and look at the bark on these trees. And I turned around, I about fell over. They were silver white. And I thought, my God. And then she showed me the fungus and how they were thinning out. These are some of the signs. When you drive by and look at trees, I look at the top of the trees, and if it looks like the top branches don't have leaves, that's usually a sign that they can't get the nutrients up to the top. Then I look to see if it's thinning out and if the leaves are maybe a little smaller. And then a lot of times they'll branch down low in the trunk. That's a sign that they're trying to survive and they're dying. And as you know, trees get so far down and so sick that they can't revive themselves. And Alan Buckman, who is a retired Department of Fish and Game biologist who is also in Skylines, talks about that and has mentioned, too, recently that we're in a world environmental crisis. The trees are dying all over the world. And not only that, but they're not producing as many leaves or as large leaves. And they produce half the oxygen. Between the algae and the trees, that's our only source of oxygen on this planet. So what are we going to do? They're harvesting algae. The algae that is dying. They're clear-cutting trees, and the trees that are still left are so sick with environmental stress from chemicals that they're not going to survive too much longer. So what are we going to do? Our oxygen's already been depleted, and what are we going to do when we don't have oxygen?
I have a question, Deborah. You just said they are harvesting algae. Can you elaborate on that?
Not in great detail. I was at the California EPA overhearing some scientists talking about, I don't know what all that they're harvesting for now, but I know they're talking about using it for fuel. They're starting to do studies, and I haven't looked into it in great detail, but I'm suspecting that there's already been some research in this area where they're harvesting and wanting to use algae somehow for fuel. So I encourage people that would like to research that in more detail and get back to me. I'd appreciate it. But this is over.
That's very interesting. And just to interject here quickly, some of the reports that I am getting constantly now are photos included of fungus and algae related reports. And just briefly, in the state of Arizona, something very different has gone on this year, in the entire year, actually since about a year ago. This fungus that you're talking about you're describing exactly what's going on here in Arizona. The trees are dying. You're describing the trees. When you were talking about the tree stump, we can tell when the tree is trying to bring up nutrients up to the leaves, up to the top part, because there's proof of that in the trunk of the tree. You can see it going up. Right. And the trees are pulling so much whatever out of the soil, yet the tops of the trees, the leaves are half infected, if you will, with this white garbage, and then half of the leaf is trying to survive. The branches aren't growing out. My trees are dying for the first time, and all the plants seem to have this fungus on it. And we also have a pool, and we have never had to fight with the phosphates as much as we had for the last year. We are fighting phosphates. They're actually telling us to drain our pool every year now because the chemicals cannot attack the phosphates now. Oh, well, people need to start treating their trees. There's a company called Microbe Tech, and you can go to microbetech.com. That's Alan Buckman's company. They do things naturally without chemicals, so that's a good source. But start feeding these plants if you want to compost, and I'm talking about all plants. So they're dying not only because of the chemical exposure that they're getting, but they're also the lack of sunlight, as Rosalind Peterson talks about, the photosynthesis. So when you have this spraying of the silver white haze, it's blocking sunlight that's needed for photosynthesis. So they're getting a double whammy. And then when you have redwood trees, which are my favorite, and we have quite a bit of them here in California, those take nutrients and stuff from their top, their canopy as well. So, there needs to be a lot more study on this. That's why I'm trying to raise money. I'm going to try to apply for grants and get an executive producer. Actually, I'm leaving on the 17th, and I'm going to be heading up to Northern California to some of the parks, and I'm going to do a short, 10 or 15-minute video on this issue to get on YouTube so people can learn how to identify the dying trees and maybe explain some of the things that they can do to try to help their plants and their gardens and things like that. And then I'll use that also to try to raise money for a documentary. My dream is to be able to travel all around the world and take tree bark, water, soil samples, and videotape and photograph different areas because these programs are going on in the NATO countries. And I would like to compare countries that are not NATO and see how the trees are doing there compared to these other trees, say in the U.S. and England and that type of thing. So that's why I've been wanting to do this documentary for quite a while, and I'm starting to work on that now. But we've tested that bark. That bark's over at UC Davis campus, and other trees. I've done about 4 tree bark tests, and I've only tested for 4 chemicals. That's aluminum, barium, strontium, which is radioactive material, and titanium. And the reason I picked titanium is because it builds up in tissues with silica. So our bodies have silica and trees have silica. And they're coming back positive with those chemicals. Now, the biologist that I work with, Francis Mangels, who is in Michael Murphy's film, and also mine and Skylines, where we were at the Shasta County offices trying to get them to start testing because there's a contamination of these chemicals in the snowpack at Mount Shasta and in the lakes up in Shasta. The county board of supervisors declined to do any testing, but Francis was there, and he says that the only thing that could, be in the trees would be the aluminum because that's kind of natural in soil, but there really shouldn't be strontium and, some of these other chemicals. And these are the same chemicals that we see, that are reported and that are on that one, actually it was what was it? It was the patent, the Hughes Aircraft patent. It talks about aluminum oxide, barium oxide, and oxides of metal in their patent. I think I have that for people who like facts. I'm more of a storyteller, but
I'll see if I can find that patent number. I have it here somewhere.
Thank you. Yeah, well...
here's the patent number.
Are you talking about the Welshback patent?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
The number is 5003186. So,
right.
you know...
That's a glaring patent, and I agree with you.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other patents, but that seems to be the one I like to refer people to because it basically spells it out.
Indeed, you're correct. And we have about 100 patents, a little over 100 patents listed on our website as well, and we do have the Welshback patent, and Frances really likes the Welshback patent because, as you said, it really does explain in plain English.
Right.
Yeah, what's going on. You don't have to be a scientist to figure it out. Now, with this barium, aluminum, strontium, and titanium testing that you did, I guess, well, let's go back. Let's step back a little bit. It sounds to me that the trees, it's pretty obvious. The trees are dying. They're dying because they can't pull the nutrients from the soil that they have been able to do since the beginning of time, if you will. And with Rosalind's work as well, you know, being that she, worked for the USDA crop loss adjuster, I believe she was, the beginning findings that she was having with farmers and things like that, it all correlates because if we have lack of nutrition, well, and this is where I think humans need to get on board, which is what you're trying to exemplify as well, is where humans need to get on board is if trees are dying and animal life is dying and the environment is dying, what do you think is going to happen to us?
Well, that's correct, and then that would probably explain the increases in everything that's going on, like cancer, like autism, like Alzheimer's. It's all related. And the trees are like our canary, and they call me the canary in the coal mine. I'm chemically sensitive, and I'm so in tune with my body, I can pretty much tell you what type of chemicals I'm around by my symptoms. And anyway, I just encourage people to be aware of their environment, and they need to learn. I have an excellent flyer on my website, which is environmentalvoices.org. And if you go to Health Tips, and then there's a link that says Health Alert. Now, that has 3 pictures that I had taken of I'm going to use the term chemtrails. I mean, some people use stratospheric aerosol geoengineering or man-made clouds. Or I just like chemtrails because it's easier to say. But I also list some of the side effects of these chemicals. For instance, aluminum, short-term memory loss, inability to absorb nutrients, digestive disorders, itchy rash, symptoms of poisoning. And then barium, some of the side effects are high blood pressure, heart rhythm changes, stomach irritation, muscle weakness, change in nerve reflex, swelling of the brain, liver, kidney, and heart. And then we come down here, strontium. That's a radioactive material. And here's one that people don't talk about much, and I found this when I first started researching in my documents, that we suspect that there's sulfur hexafluoride, which is SF6 in this mixture. So if that's true, sulfur hexafluoride, and I'll tell you, based on my symptoms, it's true. The reason is sulfur hexafluoride blocks oxygen to the heart. It causes asphyxiation. And one of my symptoms of, again, why I was going into emergency were the dizzy spells, not getting enough oxygen. I go in and I put on oxygen, even though my oxygen level was normal. When you put that little thing on your finger,
the oxygen stat, yes.
I put that on there. It was normal. But I'd argue with the doctors. I'd say, I need oxygen. They'd put me on oxygen, and sure enough, within 4 hours, I'm fine and walking out of there. So, and I have a bad heart. So I'm saying people with bad hearts are more likely, or with underlying health conditions, are probably the ones that are suffering the most. And that would explain why some people really suffer. I get calls all the time from people that say they're dying, they've lost their jobs, they can't work because of the spraying. And then and other people don't seem to notice the symptoms, but I think it has a lot to do with any underlying health conditions like asthma or Lyme disease, which is another huge issue now, and it's an epidemic all over with Lyme disease. People don't understand where that came from, which was a lab in Plum Island. So
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
right. I think Jesse Ventura covered that. Mm-hmm.
I just found out after 22 years of being very sick that I, in fact, have Lyme disease and was misdiagnosed. I had gotten
Oh, my
bit.
Lord.
We had a home in Somerset, California, out in the foothills, and I got this big bullseye rash on my leg. Now, this was in the late 1980s when I started getting sick. And back then they didn't know what it was. I called my doctor, and she didn't know what it was. And by the time, I got down there, I lived quite a way from Sacramento, it had gone away, and I didn't think anything of it, and I never put two and two together until a couple of months ago. And so people need to research Lyme disease because it's so serious. I can't even begin to tell you. And I have a document here that will, let me see if I can find that. This is... Well,
while you're looking for that, while you're looking
for... This is really good. It's called publichealthalert.org. And it was an article written. It says, The Lyme Disease Epidemic, CDC Tuskegee Experiment Phase 2. Experiment covertly continued by the CDC through the Biowarfare Research Establishment. It was an article written by Jerry Leonard, and so I encourage people to read that article.
Is that on your website?
No, I don't think we have it on there yet, but that's a good suggestion.
I'll get a link for that. No, that's all right. I'll get a link for that.
It is on this one that I just said. It was publichealthalert.org.
Okay. I'll see if I can't get a link for that, and the listeners are really savvy, so maybe the listeners can get us a link for that as well. Publichealthalert.org, and that's written by Jerry Leonard, and it was a CDC bioweapon report. It sounds like.
Well, the beginning of it says the Lyme disease epidemic.
Lyme disease epidemic. Okay, yeah, we'll definitely take a look at that. Now, I want to back up just a little bit. I had a question for you. The FF6 that you were talking about, the sulfur hexafluoride, blocks oxygen to the heart. That word has fluoride in it. Is it the same? Is sulfur hexafluoride the same as the fluoride in the water?
I'm not a chemist, and I haven't researched that, but
maybe we can get some of our savvy.
It.
Yeah. I'd be curious about that. Just as a side note, it just stuck out like a sore thumb when you said it. But okay, so moving right along.
If there's any scientists or chemists out there, do some research for us. Students, I'm trying to get UC Davis students to do studies on some of these issues, and we need to get them published in science publications. So, there's a lot out there if we can just get people involved and the right people that are credible. This research.
Absolutely. Well, and this is where Frances Mangles and Dane Wigington come in really handy because of their work, and the chef. I love them.
And then Mike Murphy, I'm sure you've probably heard that he's spent a lot of time in Hawaii, and they're right now working on getting legislation through, I understand, on a local level.
Blue Sky Ordinance, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the start, because once they start doing it, and with the research and documentation they're doing it, then maybe we can, move on and go to other states as well. But that's a start, and I'm just really happy. And
a lot of people have, in the beginning were putting, I'm from Hawaii, born and raised in Hawaii. Yes, and Hawaii is a great place to start, as Michael says, and I agree. We have these conversations quite often, Michael and I. It's a great place to start because the people in Hawaii, the citizens in Hawaii, they're really Hawaii is a place that is environmentally sound and it really has a lot of strong environmental rules and regulations, if you will. And the blue sky, what I think it was brilliant that they all came up with this together with the mayor, because the blue sky ordinance, if they put the ordinance in place, we don't have to prove that chemtrails exist. And
that's
we've
correct.
From it backwards, like trying to prove, scientifically, if you will, prove. And by the way, you and I both know it. There is proof all over the place. The proof is, I always have said this, the proof is in the patents, the proof is in the data, as you can't argue this point with...
Well, that's it. Like I have fiber that's coming out of the jet planes flying in the sky. I've got samples like crazy and video of me collecting these samples. I've had them tested with aluminum, barium, strontium, and titanium, I believe. And guess what they have? They're not spider webs.
Right,
they're not natural, but yes, they do have chemicals.
We've done the same, and I think you and I are going to be talking about this more and more, but we had the same thing. We tested a chem web, and we sent it out of the country to a doctor named Carolyn Carter, who's in Cyprus. We've been working with her for 2 years. You should see. I mean, this is a story for another day, but she's studying Morgellons. She has Morgellons disease, which is another disease that's associated.
It is, and
unbelievable.
In everybody's body, I believe. You just take this stuff. It comes down. These, even if it's not the fibers that are coming down, you're still getting these chemicals that come down. They have to come down because within 4 hours of spraying here, I start getting sick with those symptoms. So they're in our soil, they're in our water, they're in the food that we eat. So they've got to be in our body, wouldn't you think? I mean, even
oh yes, absolutely. Well, there's two different studies. There's a doctor out in the Gulf who's studying, the results of the oil spill coupled with the spraying that they're doing out there. The Corexic. And if you look into Corexic 9500, I mean, there's nothing in it that isn't poisonous. You understand? So,
I know.
Right, and so they're having is equally, and I'm sure your studies are incorporated. Not only are they having heavy-duty environmental problems going over there with their trees dying, ancient Georgia tree, all this stuff, they're also having reports of what they're thinking is Morgellons disease now. So,
well, I know because they call it Cynthia or something, but it's a rash, I guess, that I understand that they're getting. But yeah, I'm thinking it is. Morgellons or a form of Morgellons. That's when I first saw the pictures of it. That's exactly what I thought. And so there's going to be more and more research on that. The children are suffering. There's a video out on that. But bottom line is, I hope people get this. The bottom line is the chemical companies and our military are destroying this planet with chemicals. We can't eat the food. We can't eat the water or drink the water. I've got to filter my water, and even then I don't believe that it's safe enough to drink. And by the time you filter it so much that you take out all the good stuff that's in the water, so the soils are ruined. There's so many things going on up in Shasta County. There's a copper mine they're taking years and years and thousands of dollars to try to it's a Superfund site. The military bases are loaded with toxic chemicals because they dump the toxic chemicals and the aluminum and the mercury and the lead and all that stuff on their own bases. This planet is polluted, it's toxic, and now we're paying the consequences for it. They're aerosol spraying the chemicals in the air, and we're all suffering, we're all dying, the trees are dying. It's not good. So people need to get off their couches. They need, instead of going to the stupid football games or doing things, they need to be out and learning and getting education about the issues, and then they need to start taking action. We need to start putting these people behind bars for crimes against humanity. And that needs to happen now, because every day that they're allowed to spray, every day that there's war going on with aluminum and barium and toxic chemicals going in, depleted uranium going on, every day is a day that people are going to continue to suffer and die. So we need to take action. We need to get busy. We need to get educated on the issues. So
you're absolutely correct. And no, don't be
There's
sorry.
There's going to be a big rally. I hope people show up for it on Monday, the 24th, here in San Francisco, in front of the UN building and at the Golden Gate Bridge. And people just need to start taking action, and we have the power. We have the power. We just have been very lazy, and we've just left the store to our legislative people and let them handle everything. And we're coming back and finding out we've been robbed. And we've got to take control, and we've got to clean up the mess that's been created. So
well, I certainly appreciate the rant. I do them myself as well. And, what you are saying is absolutely 100% the truth. Knowledge is power, people.
It is.
And, right? And
you're not going to get it from TV. Believe me, you're not going to get it from the TV. So you've got to look at independent sources and radio shows like yours. There's a lot of information out there. You just got to dig for it.
Well, and you said a mouthful. You know, what we're being robbed of, people, is not only our health and our way of life, you know, a good, healthy way of life. We're being robbed. They're taking this out of our bank accounts in the stock market to fund all this stuff. I mean, that's a reality.
That's right. I mean, how do you think, who's paying for those manufacturing those planes? Who's paying the chemical companies for the chemicals that they're using in the war, and for the chemical companies they're using for weather modification programs? Who's paying for all of that?
They've been weaponizing space for a long time using our bank, our
the other
bank
thing
account.
with NASA and the rockets that go up. Do you know what's being done to our atmosphere because of those rockets and stuff that keep going up in space?
Say it, sister.
I mean, there is so much that I've learned in the last 3 or 4 years that it's just overwhelming sometimes. But people just need to start researching. And now we've got the issue with the electromagnetic fields. You know, people were asking me if I was sensitive to that. And I said, well, I don't know. I just deal with chemicals. Right. So finally I took some time. I said, would you explain to me what this EMF stuff's all about? And they did. And I thought, I'm going to experiment, because they said, well, people, because I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So they said people with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, if they watch too much TV, they get really tired and they have trouble getting up the next morning. And I'm thinking, that sounds like me, because I kept complaining to my friends that I'd pass out the minute I'd start sitting in my lunch chair watching TV, and I'd fall asleep, and then the next morning I couldn't wake up before 10 o'clock. So I thought, well, I'm going to experiment with this EMF stuff. And sure enough, I didn't watch TV. And the next morning, guess what time I got up? Wired like crazy. It was 6 o'clock in the morning, and I just felt wonderful. So that made me realize that there's something with this. And there's some cards that I want to recommend to your listeners get. If you go to avatarproducts.com or aboutthesky.com, she has some awesome cards that you can purchase. I think you get 100 for around $17, something like that. And to pass out, it's got website information, it's got facts. This one's the Independent Thinkers Chemtrail Fact Sheet. And it's got, I think, 10 facts about that with photographs and websites. Then she has a new one she's got out called the Independent Thinkers Wireless EMF Fact Sheet that has 10 facts about that and a whole list of websites on the back. So, and those are set up that you can even probably mail to people or hand out, whatever you want to do. But that's what you can do. And every time you go somewhere, go on a trip, hand out those flyers, talk to people. And if you don't want to talk to people, leave them at the libraries. Or, you know, there's a lot of places like Starbucks that will let you post information. I mean, there's a lot that people can do. And we're running out of time. That's all I can say. We're running out of time.
All over the place, absolutely. And I completely agree. Now, that was avatarproducts.com, correct?
Correct. Avatarproducts.com, and then her other site is aboutthesky.com. And she has, aboutthesky.com has a section there on tree decline. You really need to look at hers. I have a little bit on our website, Environmental Voices, that'll show you what the silver white bark looks like and tell you where to do testing. We're encouraging people, if they want to contact me, to do rainwater testing. That's the best test that we can do, and that would be after there's heavy spraying, then the first rain, we collect the water, and I'm trying to put together like an Excel spreadsheet, and I'd like a contact in each state where we can do these tests so I can see, well, are they getting more of these chemicals in Arizona than they are California?
Where do the listeners contact you? Where do they contact you for rainwater testing, to how to do rainwater testing, and where do they contact you, Deborah?
That wants to help with any research, if anybody would like to help me with this documentary that I'm working on, or anything, is my cell phone, which is 916-595-7197. Now, I get so many emails that I can't keep up with them, and I'm on the road a lot, so I just encourage people to call. If they don't have minutes on their phone, just say, hey, call me back, at this number, and I will. My email is Deborah J. Whitman, DeborahJ. Whitman, WHITMAN, @ AOL.com.
Okay, and again, for the listeners, I've been in touch with Deborah for quite some time. She is a busy lady, so please let's not misuse that cell phone.
Oh.
If you've got some information or you need some information, like she said, go ahead and call 916-595-7197, but let's not take advantage of that. And, of course, the
and
email
I'm working
address.
on a book, by the way, too, called Canaries Among Us. So anybody that's suffering from health conditions that they believe is related to the aerosol spraying or chemicals of some sort, like the Corexit or any of that, please contact me, because I want to take stories and compile them, with a book. So I'm encouraging people to contact me regarding that
Absolutely,
issue as well.
absolutely. And again, we're going to make a video of this, as you and I had discussed privately,
Right.
Deborah, and we're going to make a video of this. We're going to launch it sometime later on this afternoon. All of this information that we're discussing today will be on that video and the entire show, and all of the contact information will be located on the video and in the description bar. So please, people, if you aren't having pen in hand right now, all of this will be located on that video, so you can take a look at it and write down some things. We all need this help. Deborah Whitman is just one of many people out here who are just, as you can see, she is trying to do everything to get the public involved in the solution. And by the way, speaking of involved in the solution, we had a number of questions that I forwarded to you, Deborah, that we picked up from some of our people on Facebook, and you've answered some of those questions already just in the conversation that you and I have had. One of the most important questions that somebody asked, and they consider it to be the most important question, so I'll just come out and ask it. They want to know, how do we stop this? And I think you kind of covered it, but do you want to say it in your own words? How do we stop the spraying? How do we stop the toxicity?
I firmly believe that we have enough circumstantial evidence that we can nail these people. So I don't know who out there might be attorneys or have environmental attorneys or whatever. We don't have enough money, really, funding to hire attorneys to take on, but we need to prosecute these people for crimes against humanity. For instance, companies like Monsanto, if you've seen The World According to Monsanto, or another documentary that you've got to see called, what was it, The Something of Food, The Future of Food, I think it is, that you'll see the things that Monsanto is doing. These are crimes against humanity. So these people need to be prosecuted. There's got to be companies that we can find out who's involved with these programs. They need to be prosecuted against crimes against humanity. So if the United States is not going to do it, hopefully some other country will start doing that, because I think once you take one of them down, then it's just going to, it's like a Pandora's box. It's just going to open wide up. But there needs to be a consequence for what they're doing. And Monsanto, for instance, is ruining our food. They are totally ruining our food with the GMOs. And when people learn, again, education is key. So quit watching TV, quit going to ball games and doing things, and start focusing on, it makes me so frustrating, angry when I hear that there's thousands of people that will go to a ball game, and I'm not just saying one certain game or anything, but these stadiums are packed, and they're packed in the wintertime sometimes when it's so freezing cold. I'm surprised anybody's even stepping out the door. And they're paying a lot of money to sit there at these games. Well, where's the money going to research? I've been asking for donations to do tree research and funding so that we can start doing more tests. I don't get the donations that I need to get.
I don't think
we need to change
you're
our
alone.
Priorities, and we need to start focusing on the issues. We need to clean up this toxic planet so we can live here, because we're all going to die, and it's going to be a slow, miserable death. And you can already see that happening. You can already see it.
You also answered quite a few questions of some of the health issues that people are having. They did describe many of them described the heaviness in the head, the congestion in the head, congestion in a lot of mucus, their dizziness. One thing that I didn't hear you say, actually two things, and I don't know if you've experienced either one when you were getting sick. Did you experience headaches, and did you experience?
I have people that do. I wasn't getting headaches. But I had somebody that was staying with me, and I've talked to other people that, yes, the minute it starts spraying, well, not the minute, but shortly after spring, they'll start getting headaches.
And
so that is symptom.
What about
That's
the
not
tinnitus?
one that I got. But
what about the tinnitus? The ringing in the ears?
Well, I didn't have that, and I've got to bring an issue to you. People need to look at their smart meters. If they don't know anything about the smart meter issue, go to refusesmartmeter.com. And there's a military document on that website that you need to read because it talks about how dangerous microwaves are. So what happens is PG&E here in California is changing out all the meters in these homes without even really telling people they're doing it. And we're getting reports of people being very sick, especially if they're living in an apartment complex where and near a wall where there's 6 or 8 of these meters all stacked up. So people are reporting ringing in the ears. I had very bad case of the dizzy spell, vertigo, where I ended up in the hospital. I mean, it was like my brain was on the top and it was spinning around. I was vomiting and I couldn't stand up. I couldn't. Every time I moved my head, it was the most frightening thing I've ever experienced. And guess what? I was living in my daughter's home that she just moved into that had a smart meter on that side where my bedroom was. Now, when she moved out of that home, and I continued having these same symptoms with the vertigo for several months, for probably about 2 months, and when she moved out and moved into another location, guess what? Those symptoms went away. So people need to be aware of the smart meters. They're putting in cell towers everywhere. They've got cell towers now that even look like garbage cans by picnic park areas. The electromagnetic fields and the microwaves is just so bad. So I'm guessing it could be cell phones. I can't use my cell phone to my ear without getting severe ear infections.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I can't. And the minute I do, my ears start itching, and then I get an inner ear infection. I have to treat it. And my guess is that it has something to do with possibly the electromagnetic field or the radiation. But in addition, the other thing I'm concerned with are like lithium batteries. The reason I'm concerned with that is because I had a little air filter thing that I used to wear around my neck, and I only used it for a couple of months. It worked really well. But guess what? It had a lithium battery, and I got cancer right there, skin cancer. I had to have it removed. So, people are using these Bluetooths, and they're thinking, oh, these are all right. Well, I'm not sure. I don't have a Bluetooth, but I'm pretty much guessing it's got batteries in them.
Lithium battery. Isn't that interesting? Now, again, what another
Let me tell you
interesting thing.
People need to stay away from natural gas.
Oh,
natural gas. I found out I'm so allergic to natural gas, and people don't realize that they are if they're cooking with gas or heating with gas or baking. So, I'm telling you, some of the symptoms I get with that is chronic fatigue. It's like I'm drugged and I'm falling asleep. I get bloody noses, and I get muscle aches. Those are the 3 main symptoms.
What about insomnia? What is insomnia?
Carbon monoxide, I get severe angina pain. So with perfumes and scented products, I get migraine headaches. With pesticides and herbicides, the symptom that I get is I get a kind of a pain across my eyes, like a headache, but it's right in my eyes. I get an aching pain in the back of my neck, and I get nauseous to my stomach. And I've been in the hospital twice with Roundup.
Right. You're actually answering so many questions that people had just by telling your own experience. One thing that we didn't really touch on, and we are winding it down. This really went fast, but insomnia. A lot of people are also reporting, along with the symptoms of, the chronic fatigue, this and that. At the same time, they're getting insomnia. So is this
the problem
part
with the cell towers, or if they have smart meters?
Okay. What does a smart meter look like, or where can people go? Should they just go to refuse smart
meters?
Where
my meter's outside, like the PG&E or the gas company comes and checks the meters. Well, look and see if it says smart meter on it. Then that's a pretty good clue that yours has been changed out and it's a smart meter. And so there's people complaining about that, but there's so many cell towers going up everywhere. That. So I'm thinking the other thing with insomnia, and I have to tell you my own experience, if I don't eat carbohydrates, like if I go on a no-carb diet or if I'm eating where I don't eat carbs, I can't sleep at night. I have so much energy, I just don't do well. So that's one of the things I do. If I'm having sleeping problems, I get up and eat some toast or something like that and eat some carbs, and then I just pass right back out. So the other thing is that I'm thinking, and I live near a freeway, so people need to, when they have a symptom, write it down and then think, what chemicals have I been exposed to that could be, causing this symptom? So what happens is I start feeling my best around 7 o'clock at night. And that's when all the cars are off the road. That's when people aren't, companies aren't using, all the electricity and the power, and things are kind of shut down. After 7 o'clock at night and in the middle of the night is when I feel good. So it could be that these people are like, in a way, being drugged during the day with all this stuff going on.
Right, you're falling asleep in the day and then you have insomnia at night. Exactly. Deborah, we have to wind it down. We are 2 minutes away from closing here. This has been great. You were packed full of information. You did answer a lot of questions. We will put this video up by end of day. I will also share the other information because you're like an encyclopedia for us right now.
There's so many issues that I wanted to talk about and those that have insomnia, I encourage them, if they can't sleep, to go on the computer, start researching, and go to work. Help them.
That's a great idea. That's Deborah Whitman from Environmental Voices for you. Again, thanks. And Deborah, we will have you back again on the show because, as you said, there are so many issues to cover. We really appreciate you coming on the show. So thank you, Deborah.
All right. Bye-bye.
You go. Bye-bye now. That was Deborah Whitman from Environmental Voices. What a jam-packed full of information. Now, I have a special show to announce for next week. That is the 21st of October. We are going to have a 2-hour special, and we have the producer, Anthony J. Hilder, on chemtrails and the environment, and he is chock full of information. He's going to talk about Jesse Ventura. He's going to talk about the show. He's going to talk about a new TV show he's doing. He's going to talk about the new documentary called Air Auschwitz, and I want you to know that I had the pleasure of being interviewed by Anthony J. Hilder in that documentary. They flew out to Arizona, and we spent an entire day on film. So he has released that. It's called Air Auschwitz, and Anthony's going to come on packed full of info. You talk about a man who is an advocate for the people. And people, if you are not doing anything about these crimes against humanity, you're part of the problem. I hate to tell you, you're part of the problem. I know you don't want to hear that, but you are. You're buying into all the crap. You heard her. She had list and list of things that are going on. We need to step up to the plate. If anything, show up to your local Occupy and put in 8 hours one day. Just get to know your fellow man. We are starting a new way on this planet. And my engineer is telling me, occupy the planet tomorrow. I say occupy the planet today. Anyway, this is The Truth Denied. I'm your host, Roxy Lopez. It's been a great day. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. Get out and occupy this weekend, man. Do something, people. We are the people, of the people, by the people, for the people. Humanity rocks. We'll talk to you soon. Good morning, everyone. Actually, it's high noon in the desert. This is The Truth Denied. I'm your host, Roxy Lopez, and we're having an interesting day already. Our guest today that was scheduled is Deborah Whitman. I actually just left her a message about 10 minutes ago. She is the president for Environmental Voices, and this woman is very busy. She's their mission statement, for starters, is to help preserve our future by providing education and research about toxic chemicals and how they affect our health and the environment. Our little dilemma that we're having here is that we have tried her at a couple of phone numbers and cannot seem to reach her. We're getting voicemails. Although, like I said, I did have a voicemail from her about 10 minutes ago. And
we are going to try again.
We're going to try again, thanks. We're trying to... Just hold on, people. We're going to do whatever we can to get her on the line here. There might be some confusion. She's got quite a few phone numbers. We'll just have a little patience here, and if not, we're just going to roll forward regardless.
She just left us a message on another line, so we're going to try that line.
Oh, right. Great. So anyway, while we are waiting for Deborah, I want to thank everyone from the group Chemtrails Kill on Facebook for putting your questions forward. Really intelligent questions that you have, not the typical who's doing it, the spraying, the chemtrail spraying. We've got some really great questions, and we're going to, as soon as we get Deborah on the line, we're going to fill you in with what she's doing as well, and perhaps answer some of the questions that you have provided for us. And she also has those questions. So hopefully we can get into that conversation and discussion. We also welcome you to call the show today if you want to. We do the show as well on YouTube, as you well know, the audio and the video. So,
hi, this is Deborah Whitman. Please leave your name.
We are not having any luck. And did you say that she left us a message with that phone number that we're calling her at?
Yeah, let me see if there was.
Is it a different phone number that we're looking at?
Roxy, that was the number 916 number.
Yeah.
That left that message.
Okay. I am also sending her a note. There we go. Hey, we're going to get you, Deborah. We're not letting her off the hook, right? Let's see. We'll all wait and see if she actually answers the line.
Hi, this is Deborah Whitman.
Oh, my goodness.
Telephone number and a brief message. And
nope, leave a message.
All right.
Record your message after the tone. To send a generic page,
everyone, let's leave her a message.
When you are finished recording, hang up. Or for delivery options, press pound.
Phone tag.
Hi, Deborah. This is Roxy Lopez calling you from The Truth Denied. You have a lot of listeners waiting for you to get on the air. We have called you at both numbers. You're calling in the show on a number. We're calling you back on that number. We also have the other area code 530 that we've been calling you on. I think you might have given us the wrong phone number. So when you call in the show, we cannot pick up the guest line. It goes directly to voicemail. So please give us a call back and maybe leave a voicemail with what number, or send us an We will solve this mystery. Something straight, every now and then. I remember when we did the show with Gilliland out at Gilliland's Ranch, and I remember the same thing happened. We had several numbers that we were calling him at. His phone was ringing, but it wasn't ringing on his end. and it was just absolutely bizarre. Now, just for the listening audience, I'm trying to send her an email right now, and the email that the email that I've always sent her emails at is not going through. So, what does this tell you? Very interesting. Well, we're just going to have to move forward.
She just called back again from that number.
She did. And she's calling back. Can we answer her when she calls?
No, when we're on a live show, it automatically sends it to voicemail.
Is that right? And she's calling back from that number.
So we're calling her right back.